Participating in ceremonies are important for our family. Traditionally, we women were the builders of the communities. While the men were out, they were hunting, we attend to our family. Being an Indigenous woman, we work hard, so hard work is nothing. It's just part of our lives. Growing and establishing IDS+A, our really design philosophy and our vision and mission is really trying to connect the culture, traditions, and language in a way that is very contemporary and not really literal interpretations of, a lot of the Indigenous architecture. For me, being Navajo, our Indigenous prototype architecture is an octagon, a hogan. So you see that all on Navajo. Our culture really comes from our creation stories and our clan relationships. So the stories, how we come up with our concepts and our designs is just sitting there and talking to the community and listening to them, and that's how we kind of come up with our parties and designs. It's been very successful, and if you think about the way Indigenous architecture and how we used to plan, that's typically how it would be, was, we took more of this democratic approach to planning and design, coming up with some type of consensus with it, listening to the stories and coming up with those designs. At an early age, I wanted to get into architecture, and I was really amazed by the schools, their models and their display of their art pieces and buildings, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. Part of our IDS+A philosophy, we're 10 people firm, but I really have to look out for kind of the well-being of our staff too, setting up things like just a profit sharing. And so it's just not the owner, but it's also the employees looking at profit sharing. So that's something that I've set up because I feel like those are important, to retain people that want to work for you. We are the only firm, not just in the country, but the whole world, that has a true 100% Indigenous staff. My first hire was Theo Edekai. He is from Isleta. I kind of was able to seek him out because he was really good at putting these ideas of this kind of Indigenous philosophy, Indigenous design into architecture. He has really excelled. He is now a licensed architect, and he's the first licensed architect for Isleta.
I met TAMARA when I was an undergrad in architecture school at University of New Mexico. I was able to grow with the firm. I started out as an architecture student with IDS+A, and I was able to gain skills along the way and learn what it was to be an architect. And at the same time, I was able to take my architectural exams, get my experience, and I was able to become the first licensed architect for Isleta Pueblo. I think that's one of the great things about working here is that we all, we haven't gotten too big ever. I think we've gotten a little bit over 10 people at one point, but really, I think having that tight-knit group really helps us to have those connections with each other. We've known each other for years, between myself, TAMARA, and Jan especially.
My name's Jan Deer Tafria. I'm a project architect here at IDS+A. I am Mohawks of Kahnawake in Quebec, and Potawatomi Ojibwe from Watuksing, Ontario. I think we're all pretty close. I think we have to be. We travel together, but we are like a family. I think as an architect, you need to realize that, yes, the work that we do is important. Any new construction in a community, any community actually, but especially in Indigenous communities, new building just impacts everybody.
When I got into architecture, I really wanted to focus in education, schools. We've started working on Head Start facilities, connecting to local culture, traditions, and language, really trying to tie in this idea of using Navajo language into Head Start programs. our language is being lost. A lot of our traditions are being lost. So when the kids are coming in here, the first thing they want to do is teach them about their culture. They might not be taught that at home. And so designing a Head Start facility at an early age, which I always think is really important, is educating at a very young age about their history and culture and really trying to excite them about their educational experience and their schooling. I think that's important. We start thinking about each of Indigenous tribes and how they want to incorporate that type of language, traditions, and culture into the school at the early age. Because again, a building, it's just not a building. You know, we have a prime example of Chaco Canyon. I mean, Indigenous architecture that still stands today. And they looked at all the elements, Mother Earth, water, sky, wind, all these elements in order to build from. Another project example that we're working on is in Shiprock, New Mexico. The Navajo name is Restorative Justice Center, and it includes a combination of departments and venues, corrections, law enforcement, and then also courts, and there's also an autopsy. They have all these departments that are really detached, but should be working together. And so our idea behind that concept is looking at really this restorative justice, a way of healing the Indigenous people that are coming to this area. So our design really spears from that, and taking this approach of just always locking people up, going back to our traditional ways of, well, when there's ailments or something bothering us, we traditionally go to, you seek medicine man or medicine woman. So taking that idea again and putting it in a context of more this contemporary way, well, it's a change, it's a little change that we're thinking of and saying, hey, you know, well, let's go back to these ideas of really this restorative justice rather than thinking about just locking people up, and it's not really helping the community and, you know, Indigenous people out.
That project that we really were really proud of as a great milestone for the company was Navajo Technical University Chinle classroom building. When construction first started, we were going out there and the foundation was first being put in. I was able to go out there onto the site with Jan or TAMARA and be able to see the progress. It was like, wow, this is actually starting. And then we had the grand opening, which was kind of the culmination of all that work that was put into it.
That's my baby. The thing I find about Indigenous architecture is that community feel. And that particular project, what the community needs are, were taken into consideration. Any of our projects, the community always has input in the project too. Our process is set up that way so that the community has a say in what's going to be in there, in the area.
We got our first award for the Navajo Technical University. It was really nice to have people see that the architecture out on Navajo can be elaborate, it can connect to the land, it connect to the culture and really traditions. Part of that design included kind of emulating the canyon on the exterior of the building, but taking on more this kind of modern look in terms of visualization of a metal exterior panel. There's perforated panels, so it makes it look like the building is moving in the distance. I've heard that from several people, be like, oh yeah, I went to Chile and I seen that building. That building seems like it's kind of moving. And it's like, yes, that's exactly kind of like what we were trying to think of, is trying to incorporate that movement and also the movement of water.
When we go by or we hear stories about it, it's just really great to hear that people really like the building, that they think that it's a great addition to the community of Chinle. So we're really happy that we're able to do that. I think really behind the mission of IDS+A is to bring quality design to underserved tribal communities. And so really when we're able to design a new building or we're able to plan something better for a community, it's going to impact them in the long run for generations. So whether it's providing a Head Start or a new higher education building, it's really going to impact them in having those resources available for the youth or elders, whoever it's going to be.
It's always instilled in us from the very beginning. And my grandma, being a medicine woman, she would always tell her grandkids things about, you know, the world, and letting them know that all of us are human beings and we're placed on this earth And, we have to be the best human beings that, we can. Well, I think being Navajo is being really proud of where you come from and who you are. And I think that's been really instilled in me. I have a lot of strong females in my family, and they always would tell me, don't ever forget where you came from. And I'm like, I do, and I feel like sometimes I have the spunk to say things that people will say, oh, you shouldn't say that. But I'm like, no, I'm gonna stand up for who I am. And I'm gonna stand up for the right of my family, myself, and my people. And we should be heard. We should be heard just like anybody else. Yate, TAMARA Bigay and Shia, Nai Kaiden and Shia, Kia Ani Bashachin, Ashidashanoli, Tohoglini Dashache. My name is TAMARA Bigay, and I am from the Navajo Nation. My company is called Indigenous Design Studio Architecture. We're excited to work with everybody, and it's a good time to be in architecture right now.